Hi and welcome to Just One More Paddle. Today I'll be reviewing my drysuit and I hope that those of you who are thinking of carrying on paddling through the winter will find this video helpful. So I've got a Palm Cascade Drysuit that was designed specifically for women. It's got women specific sizing and it's got a women friendly relief zip. The men's version has got a front zip to help you go to the toilet. And this is a front entry drysuit, and it's got latex seals on the neck and it's got latex seals on the wrists, and as you would expect in a drysuit it's got fabric socks as well, which I keep stuffed in here so that they don't get those micro tears. So for me, a drysuit is really an essential part of my paddling kit, especially if you are a sea kayaker. You know that you'll encounter a lot of wet and windy days out at sea, even in the summer. So for me, the drysuit isn't just for winter paddling, it's for all year round paddling. I often do a lot of rolling and rescue days during the summer, which means that I'm in and out of the water pretty much all day. And I don't necessarily want to be cold. I'm in the north of England, it gets pretty cold quite quickly, and to avoid that risk of hypothermia, I wear a drysuit on those types of days. So for me, this is an all year round type of paddling kit, but I appreciate that a lot of people don't do that, and drysuits are strictly kept for the winter, and that's also okay. We have a very high risk of cold water shock in winter, and a drysuit really becomes very important for us paddlers going through the winter. Unfortunately, drysuits are very expensive. So the Palm Cascade retails at about £575 in the UK. But I got this last year in the Christmas sales for about £350. So if you are looking for a drysuit, I really recommend either waiting for a sale or shopping around at different websites, because the prices do vary. And those of you who are looking for a drysuit will notice that the drysuits designed for women tend to have a drop seat and also skip a drop seat. And the ones that are with a drop seat will be a little bit more expensive, and I really recommend you pay a little bit extra for that comfortable experience of going to the toilet in the wild, because otherwise you'll be getting out completely of a drysuit, which is really uncomfortable when you're out paddling. The other thing is that there are a lot more expensive drysuits available on the market, and they have lifetime guarantees, they have superior materials, and they are durable, but all I'll say is that this is my second drysuit and they last a long time, but they don't last forever. So, you know, you might change your size, you might change your paddling, so try and think about the cost of or value of the drysuit before you spend £1,000 on your next drysuit. So let's talk about fit. I'll be the first to admit it, putting on a drysuit can feel like torture, and it's very energy consuming at the start of a paddle, especially in winter. So this is something to bear in mind when you buy your drysuit. So with that in mind, Palm Cascade is about as standard as a drysuit can be. It takes a lot of energy to put on. The seals are very tight, so every time I put it on I lose a few hair. But the good news is the front entry makes things a little bit easier. With other drysuits you have back zips and you have to get somebody to help you to zip you up, whereas here you're a bit more independent. But again, as I mentioned, the seals are very tight, so you really need to be mindful of your hair when putting it on. So you'll see the drysuit's actually got quite a lot of adjustment available on the neck, the wrists and the twin waist, which really helps in the fitting of the drysuit, and it's actually a really comfortable drysuit. Unfortunately, the zip is actually covered with Velcro, which in my opinion is really problematic because my hair gets stuck in it almost every time and it pulls once I've got the drysuit on. So it's really uncomfortable. I don't know if any women tested this before they made it, but it doesn't work for me. But once the drysuit is on, the ordeal is kind of over and I'm very comfortable. It's really nice. The sizing is pretty good. I had to go for a small relaxed, which Palm has for people who are in between sizes. So I'm in between a UK size 10 and 12. So it works really well for me because I'm quite small on top and quite big on my legs. So this dry suit works for me without me having to have a very, very long dry suit. Unfortunately, what it means is that the top is a lot bigger than it needs to be, but that's unfortunately a problem with kit that is sized proportionally for people who perhaps don't have proportional bodies. The other good thing about this dry suit is that I have really good range of motion when I'm kayaking, canoeing or paddleboarding, which is really, really great. The material is really good, it's waterproof and it lasts a long time. I've had this about a year. And I've used it in all sorts of environments. The good thing is that the zip is made of a material so that it doesn't get stuck. So I don't get salty water getting stuck on it. I don't need to rub beeswax on the zip, which makes life a lot easier. Let's talk about whether a dry suit actually feels good. Again, I'm not gonna lie to you, it doesn't feel that good. I feel a little bit like an astronaut going into space. There's quite a lot of layers on when I've got a dry suit. It's often got thermals underneath. I usually have neoprene socks on top of the fabric socks so that they don't get tears, on top of the buoyancy it on top of the dry suit. It's bulky, but that's not the dry suit's fault, that's just me and my preference. It's got really good range of motion, as I mentioned. It feels as good as it can be. The relief zip doesn't get in the way when you're seated while kayaking, which is really something I was quite worried about when I was buying a dry suit. One more thing to be uncomfortable in a kayak on long journeys, but this one performs quite well. Again, I'll be honest, dry suits aren't the most attractive bit of kit. I look and feel like an astronaut when I've got my dry suit on, but I do like the red. It's a really flattering colour. It's possibly the most common colour I've seen in dry suits. So the Cascade is only available in red and grey, which is great because we're not wasting too much energy on creating different colours of dry suits, because it's not very environmentally friendly either. Again, high-vis colours might be nice for us sea paddlers, but that's really not a necessity at this point. I would say the dry suit feels very good and it looks as good as it can. So let's think about what I would like to change in this dry suit. So bearing in mind that I can't really change the seals because the dry suit needs to stay watertight, I'd say the Velcro is possibly the least favourite part for me in this dry suit. It gets stuck in my hair even when I've tied it up, and it's really, really annoying and it's very painful, and it just makes me want to cry when I'm putting my dry suit on. So I would have really, really liked this Velcro to disappear. I know that the zip needs to be covered with something, but I'm sure there's another alternative to Velcro. I'll also say that the seals are a little bit too thin, and this is from personal experience. If the neck seal is a bit too tight, it will split, as it happened to me just before going on a rolling session. The seal split completely all the way down to the neck and I couldn't use it. And I didn't send it to Palm to have it repaired because I would get the same flimsy seal back and I'd be out of a dry suit for about 3 weeks. So I had it changed locally by somebody who is an expert in dry suit repairs with a much thicker seal, which actually fits me, and it's been happy days since then. One of the things I actually quite miss in this dry suit is having a pocket on the arm, somewhere here. My last dry suit had this, possibly to keep things like beeswax for the zip, maybe keys if the pocket is completely dry, or a whistle if you get into trouble. It could be anything, but I think that a little zip, like a pocket here, would be really, really helpful for this dry suit. My favourite thing about this dry suit, as you might have guessed, is the relief zip. I can't tell you how many trips I've been on where I've seen ladies completely getting out of their dry suit to go to the toilet, screaming and crying because the seals have pulled off yet more hair than they had started with. So I think the relief zip is really, really helpful. I've had other dry suits with relief zips, and this one is a little bit more comfortable in terms of range of motion and just movement. So it's something to bear in mind if you are interested in taking longer trips in winter or summer, and you might be interested in using that kind of zip. So if you've never had a dry suit before, I feel like there are some tips that you might need if you're thinking of buying your first dry suit. just to help you get on with it a little bit more before you start paddling in it. So the first thing I'll say is that when you try on your dry suit, please let all of the air out before you get on the water. And this is extremely important because, as you can imagine, if you have a lot of air, you'll just float and you won't be able to rescue yourself very easily. So the best way to do this is to hold the neck seal and squat. And as you can imagine, because there are lots of different zips on a dry suit, there's lots of places where air can get in, so just be mindful of that before you get on the water. The other thing is that if you're getting a dry suit with a relief zip, just remember to close it completely. I've been caught out several times. We always do the front zip really tight, but we forget the relief zip. It's very normal. Just because you don't think of it, the zips always have a little bit of an extra bit at the end that you have to push to shut, and if you don't shut it, water will come into your dry suit. The third thing is fabric socks are very sensitive, so if you walk around even on the carpet in your home, it might develop micro tears over time that you may not see, but you'll feel the water seep in after some time, and we really don't want that in winter. Speaking of socks and protecting them, you should always wear neoprene socks on top of the fabric socks if you're in a dry suit. It just protects them from the additional friction from your shoe, and it will prolong the life of your dry suit. And speaking of shoes, I'm sorry to tell you, but you'll have to get a special set of shoes for your dry suit, because if you have a look at the size of the fabric socks, nobody's feet are really that big, so there's a lot of additional fabric that needs to go somewhere, and unfortunately it's going to be a bigger sized shoe. So I always tell people to get a size of shoe that will work for you, maybe a size up or 2 sizes up, and just keep it for wearing with your dry suit, and it's really going to help you in prolonging the life of your dry suit. When it comes to prolonging the life of your dry suit, the best thing you can do is get a changing mat and not walk around the carpet with it, because it will develop those micro tears. This is possibly very obvious, but in winter you'll want to wear thermals underneath the dry suit. It'll make paddling a lot more comfortable, and I usually wear merino thermals that I can wear them a few times before washing them, but others might choose to wear other types of thermals, whatever's comfortable for you. In the summer, I would also recommend wearing something underneath it. Wearing the dry suit just on its own, it's not going to keep you warm, and the idea really is to stay dry and warm. So I would recommend gym wear or anything like that, quite light in the summer, to wear underneath the dry suit. I hope you found that video helpful, and it will help you buy your next dry suit, whether it's the Palm Cascade, which is available at the moment, or any other dry suit that you might think is more appropriate for your paddling. If you have any questions or you'd like me to add something to this video about the dry suit, please comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.